So hello everyone. Um, so this is the course that we are having. This is the third week today for gate problem solving sessions in physics.
Recording in progress.
And we will be discussing as I mentioned in the very first lecture, that the topics that we are focusing are mathematical physics, electromagnetic theory, quantum mechanics, and general aptitude. And in the last week, we saw one question from each of these four topics just to get started and just as a representation of what this course will offer. And this week, we will focus on general aptitude and mathematical physics. So how we will proceed further is that every week we will select one topic out of mathematical physics, electromagnetic theory, and quantum mechanics. One of these plus general aptitude. So some questions on general aptitude and then some questions from one of these three topics. So this week it will be general aptitude plus mathematical physics. And before getting started, just a few logistical details of the course for those of you who are joining for the first time. This course will be recorded. So this is the Zoom session that we will have every Saturday from 1:30 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. And this is also live streamed on YouTube. So you can go to the YouTube channel and check the live streaming there as well. And even after this session is over, you can go to the YouTube channel and re-watch the session if you feel like, if you want to revisit some of the questions. So I will just put the link to the YouTube channel in the chat box. You can go ahead and subscribe it. So this is the YouTube channel that we have, where each of these videos will be live streamed. And then we have a Google Drive folder where I upload these lecture notes that we discuss for every week. So you can go and bookmark the Google Drive site as well, and you can go and check the lecture notes for each week that we have. So we have the lecture notes for the last week uploaded over there, and I will just share the link to the Google Drive folder as well. Just give me a minute. So we have three forums which are going to help you throughout this course. Definitely this Zoom meeting is there. So we will have classes on this Zoom. Apart from that, the other forum that is there is the YouTube channel. And after that, then we have this Google Drive, which I have just put in the chat box for all of you. And there is another forum that we have, which is the Discord channel. So for those of you who have not joined the Discord channel, I will send the link to the Discord channel as well. And you can go ahead and join the Discord server. Just give me a minute. I will share the link to the Discord server in the chat box. So these are the three platforms that we have where you can go and revisit the topics that we have studied, and as you can also post your own questions in these forums, and then we will look at those questions that you have. So here's the Discord server link, and you can go ahead and join this Discord server, bookmark the Google Drive folder, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. So these are the three forums that we will have. So let us now get started. So these are the logistical details that we have. Every Saturday, 1:30 p.m. we have a 1-hour class, and these are the three links that you should keep saved somewhere on your computer. So let us get started. Today we will focus on general aptitude and mathematical physics. So I have prepared like 5 questions from general aptitude and 5 questions from mathematical physics. So let us get started with the first question. So as you might be aware, in general aptitude, apart from some logical reasoning type questions, you also have some English language based questions. So you need to have like basic understanding of English vocabulary and English grammar. So the very first question out here is on English language. So it says choose the most appropriate word from the options given below to complete the following sentence. And the sentence is, if we manage to dash our natural resources, we would leave a better planet for our children. So this is very easy. All of you might have already answered this question. So the correct option is conserve. And just for your reference, I will put out the Oxford definition for conserve. So for English, I would suggest that you refer to Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary. You have the website available for free, and there is also an app that they have. It's a paid app, but it's a one-time payment. So if you want, you can purchase the app as well, then it will be there on your phone. So the Oxford definition is that to conserve something means to protect something, and prevent it from being changed or destroyed. And another similar definition is to use as little of something, as little as possible, so that it lasts a long time. So the definition over here in our example is closer to the second definition that is written, and just some example phrases and example sentences. So one example phrase would be for the first example, for the first definition, is that new laws to conserve wildlife So to conserving wildlife would mean that you are preventing the destruction of wildlife. You are preventing any change to the wildlife, any change from happening to the wildlife in the region. So this corresponds to the first definition. Another example would be renewable energy resources. Renewable energy resources can help conserve fossil fuels and reduce carbon emissions. So this corresponds more to this second definition that is there. That is, if you want to conserve fossil fuels, then we want to use as little of the fossil fuels as possible. We want to reduce and minimize our usage of fossil fuels. And then how do we solve the problem of energy? Then we will use renewable energy resources in order to conserve the fossil fuels that we have. So this is the first question on general aptitude. And all of these definitions that I'm writing and these examples that I'm writing are from Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary. You can go to the online website and you can even download the app that they have. Next is some simple question. So this is a question. Let me read out the question. It says 25 persons are in a room. 15 of them play hockey. 17 of them play football. And 10 of them play both hockey and football. Then the number of persons playing neither hockey nor football is, and we need to find out that number. So let us start. These are the options that we are given. So let us write down. So the number of people playing either hockey or football. Someone has a question, it seems. Someone is trying to ask a question or what? I see someone has unmuted. Okay, fine. So yeah, number of people playing either hockey or football would be given by the union. So either hockey or football is given as a union. So this would be number of people. H over here denotes hockey and F denotes football. So number of students playing hockey plus number of students playing football minus number of students playing both hockey and football. So both hockey and football is taken as the intersection, and either hockey or football is taken as a union. So someone has a query. I see someone else is also unmuted. Aishwarya, you have some query? Okay, fine. So I see something in the chat box. People have answered this thing. So Prateek, yes, your answer is correct, and we are just discussing the solution. Your answer is absolutely correct. So this is the equation that we will write for either hockey or football, that's given as a union, and both hockey and football is given as an intersection. Now we are given these numbers. So people playing hockey, that is 15. People playing football, that's 17. And people playing both hockey and football, these people must be very skilled. They are playing both hockey and football. Both the sports are quite different in terms of the skills required. So yeah, definitely these 10 people are very much skillful, I must say. So both hockey and football are 10. And so this 15 plus 17 minus 10, this gives me 22. So, and total number of people that we have, total number of people, that's 25. So now we can find out number of people. We are supposed to find number of people playing neither hockey nor football that would be total minus number of people playing either hockey or football. So that is 25 total number of people minus 22 number of people playing either hockey or football. That gives me 3. So this is the answer, 3. So this was a simple question based on some people playing one sport, another people playing another sport, and then the union and intersection. Based on that simple set theory, this question is there. So I would have fallen in this football because I play football. So I would have been in one of these 17 people right here. That would be me. Some of you might be playing hockey. So yeah, people should play sports. I believe it's good to stay fit. Now next question. So yeah, this is another question based on English. So the question says that the question below consists of a pair of related words followed by 4 pairs of words. Select the pair that best expresses the relation of the original pair. And the original pair of words that we are given is unemployed is to worker. So out of these 4 options, we need to select which option is closest in the relation specified by unemployed is to worker. Now, if you see that the relation unemployed is to worker is like that of an adjective and a noun. The noun being worker and unemployed being the adjective describing the state of the worker. So the worker could be either employed or unemployed. So unemployed describes the state of the worker. So it's like an adjective is to noun kind of a relation that we have. So the correct option which matches this over here is this. Follow is to land. Now some of you might be knowing the meaning, some of you might not be knowing the meaning. So I will write down the meaning again from Oxford dictionaries of follow. So follow means of a farmland. So follow is typically used when you are trying to describe a farming land, and it means that it is not used for growing crops. So this is the most correct option over here. Why? Because unemployed is a state of the worker wherein the worker is not being worker is not working. So worker would be supposed to be doing some work, but the worker is not doing any work. Similarly, a farmland or any land would be meant for some farming activities and using for some agricultural activities, but if it is not being used, then it is a fallow land. So this is the correct option over here, and this is the definition of fallow. Again, people should, I think, refer to Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary. You could also refer to Cambridge Dictionary. So some of the famous dictionaries that are there, I would list them down for you, so you can go ahead and refer to these dictionaries for any English language query. So Oxford dictionaries, this I believe is one of the best. Then you have Cambridge also has its dictionary, and both of these are available online as well as a mobile phone app. And then of course you can refer to Google. Now these days Google also provides you the definition in its Google dictionaries, so you can refer to the Google dictionaries, but these two are pretty much more standard. Other ones are Macmillan Dictionary or Merriam-Webster Dictionary, but typically Oxford is, I feel personally, it's one of the best. So next question, this is based on time and work. So time, work, kind of category of problems are there. So the question states that 5 skilled workers can build a wall in 20 days. 8 semi-skilled workers can build a wall in 25 days. And 10 unskilled workers can build a wall in 30 days. Now we have a team. So we have a team of people from each of these 3 categories. So if a team has 2 skilled, 6 semi-skilled, and 5 unskilled workers, how long would it take to build the wall? So it's another simple logical question based on time and work. So let us start solving the question. So let me use some symbols. So S would denote skilled worker. S prime would denote, let's say, a semi-skilled worker. Let S prime denote a semi-skilled worker, and let U denote an unskilled worker. Okay. Now, if we want to build a wall in one day, so we would like to use unitary method, but for time and work. So this time and work seems to work a little bit differently than the normal unitary method, but it's just that you need to use your logic. So to build a wall in one day, let us say we have only skilled workers. Then if we have only skilled workers, then we would need 100 skilled workers. So 5 skilled workers take 20 days to build the wall. So if you want to build a wall in one day, then we would need 20 into 5, that is 100 skilled workers. Note that this is a multiplication. It is in a standard unitary method, you typically divide things. You do 20 divided by 5 or something. But here it's like a product. So take note of this thing right here. Then let us say if we had only semi-skilled workers, then semi-skilled would be 8 into 25. So what is happening over here? 8 semi-skilled workers take 25 days to build a wall. So if you want to build a wall in one day by using only semi-skilled workers, I would need 8 into 25, that is 200 semi-skilled workers. Next, if we have unskilled workers, then that would mean I would need 300 unskilled workers. Why? Because we are given that 10 unskilled workers take 30 days to build a wall. So to build a wall in 1 day with only unskilled workers, I would need 300 unskilled workers. So yeah, Nisha has given the answer. Nisha, you are right. So I would just be discussing the solution for other people as well to follow, and just for the sake of completeness. So this is how, if we have just only one class of workers, how many workers we would need. And from this, we can come up with a relation that 100 skilled workers are equivalent to 200 semi-skilled workers, which are further equivalent to 300 unskilled workers in the terms of time taken to build a wall. So each of these configurations are building a wall in 1 day. So 100 skilled workers also build a wall in 1 day, 200 semi-skilled workers also build the wall in 1 day, and 300 unskilled workers also build the wall in 1 day. So simplifying this would give us a skilled worker is equivalent to 3 unskilled workers, and a semi-skilled worker is equivalent to 1.5 unskilled workers. So this is the relation that we have between skilled, semi-skilled and unskilled workers. So now let us say that time to build a wall by the team is, let us say, T, and our team consists of 2 skilled workers, 6 semi-skilled workers, and 5 unskilled workers. Now using these relations out here, this would be equal to 1 skilled worker is 3 unskilled, so 2 into 3 unskilled. 1 semi-skilled is equal to 3 by 2 unskilled, so this into 3 by 2 unskilled, and 5 unskilled. So this would give you 6, and this is like so, 6 plus 9 plus 5, that is 20 unskilled. So our team of 2 skilled, 6 semi-skilled, and 5 unskilled workers is essentially equivalent to having, let us say, only 20 unskilled workers. Now we can easily find out the time. Therefore, the time taken to build the wall by this team would be 30 days, because 30 days into 10 unskilled divided by 20 unskilled. Why? Because 10 unskilled workers, this 10 unskilled workers took 30 days to build the wall. So now if we have 20 unskilled workers, that would be 10 into 30 divided by 20, and that would be 15 days. So as Nisha had correctly written in the chat box, the correct option over here is D, that is 15 days. So now another question on English, another pretty simple grammatical question. There's nothing much to discuss over here. So the question says, choose the most appropriate phrase from the options given below to complete the following sentence. The sentence is, I contemplated dash Singapore for my vacation but decided against it. The options are to visit Singapore, having to visit Singapore, visiting Singapore, and for a visit Singapore. So the correct option over here, can someone write in the chat box what, so people write in the chat box what you feel is the correct answer for this. So people can write down in the chat box if you are there. Yeah, everybody please write in the chat box what the correct option is. I would like to see what option you select. So each one of you please write in the chat box. You have 1 minute to write in the chat box. Yeah, I see there are 10 people over here. Please write in the chat box. So Priyanka says option A, Aishwarya says option A, Nisha says option C. Okay, someone else also wants to try. Yeah, I would like everyone to try it. Everyone give your opinion on what the correct answer is. I have 3 people having said, 3 people have given me their answers. So okay, fine. So some people are saying A, someone has said C. So the correct option is indeed C. So some people do get confused over here. So that's why I wanted people to give the correct option that they feel. So some people indeed say, when they are saying that I contemplated to visit Singapore. Some people are saying A. So some people indeed while conversing, while having a conversation with people, they say something like this, that I contemplated to visit Singapore for my vacation. But that is not the correct option. The correct option is I contemplated visiting Singapore. So you use this particular phrase, this particular tense you use when you are talking in this context. So yeah, that's all for the general aptitude for today. So these were 5 questions for general aptitude, some English, some logical reasoning. And now we will move towards mathematical physics. So a bunch of questions. I have 5 questions for mathematical physics as well. So we will look at those questions now. So this is the first question. The question is on tensors. Now, for those of you who have not studied tensors, do not worry, do not get tensed. It is a very simple question. You will be able to solve it. And the question is, consider an anti-symmetric tensor Pij with indices I and j running from 1 to 5. The number of independent components of the tensor is, we are given 4 options. Now, anti-symmetric tensor means that if you have Pij is your anti-symmetric tensor, so if you interchange the indices, so if you interchange, then you get a negative sign. Sorry. So Pij is negative of Pji. So if you interchange the indices, you get a negative sign. That is the anti-symmetric tensor. Now, you can represent this Pij tensor as a matrix. And if it is an anti-symmetric tensor, you can represent this as an anti-symmetric matrix. So if I want to write the matrix representation, this would be by an anti-symmetric matrix. So everyone would be aware of matrices, even if you are not aware of tensors, and that's how you can solve this question. So we are given that the indices run from 1 to 5. So it's a 5 cross 5 matrix representation that we will have. So let me write down the matrix representation. It will be like 5 cross 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 rows and 5 columns. Okay, so this kind of a grid we will have. Okay, so this will be the 5 cross 5 matrix representation. And if it is, so someone has given the option and it is the correct option, we will just discuss it. So now, if it is anti-symmetric, then what we have is Pij is equal to minus Pji. Now this means that the diagonal terms, which are Pii, would be 0. Because 0 is the only number which is like the negative of itself. If you have 5, then 5 is not equal to minus 5. Only 0 is equal to negative 0. So the diagonal elements would have to be 0. So each of these terms over here in the diagonal would be 0. And since it is anti-symmetric, all these terms in the upper triangle would be negative of the terms in the lower triangle. So all we need to worry about in the terms of independent components are these upper triangular or equivalently the lower triangular elements, because the other triangle, so this thing right here, would be the negative of the upper triangle. So purple would be equivalent to negative of the green elements. So, so we only need to consider one of the triangular elements. Now, the independent components would then be, so we just need to consider these elements. Let me just highlight them for you. So these elements over here are the independent components. So you could simply count them as well, but we would let us just write down the general expression. So independent components would be given by n squared minus n divided by 2. And why so? Because n squared are the total components. So if the indices run from 1 to n, say, then n squared would be the total components and n would be the diagonal components. And diagonal we know is going to be 0. So n squared minus n by 2, and n in our case is 5. So n squared minus n by 2 for n equal to 5 is 25 minus 5 by 2, which is 10. So as Priyanka and Rajiv have correctly answered, the option is B, 10. So this is how you will solve the question. Next up, we have a question on a complex analysis. So this is integration of complex valued functions. So the question is, the value of the integral, we are given a closed line integral of the function e to the power z times sine z divided by z squared. So, by the way, if people have some question in between, if you are not able to understand, please feel free to unmute or write in the chat box. There are quite a few people who are able to understand and are answering the questions correctly. But if you are not able to understand, please don't feel shy and feel free to ask the question, and I will repeat it again for you and try to explain it a little bit better so that you can understand. So if any one of you have any query up until now, please stop me and feel free to ask the question. So this is a question on complex valued functions. So we are given a function and we are given a contour, the closed contour over which this closed line integral is to be performed, and this contour is given as a unit circle centered about a different point, z equal to 2, not z equal to 0. That is not the origin. And we need to find out the value of the integral. Now, before proceeding, I would like to write down the residue theorem for you, for all of you. For those of you who know, they have already answered, and for those of you who don't know, here is the residue theorem, which we will use for solving this question. And not only for this question, you will use this for solving all kinds of complex valued functions, integrals of complex valued functions. So the residues theorem says that if we have a complex valued function f of z and we need to find out the line integral over a closed loop, then this is given by the following. Now, let me explain what each of these terms in this expression means. So this is our residue theorem, and you should remember it. It is like one of the most important topics in complex analysis that we have, and you should remember it always. So let me just explain these terms right here. F of z is a complex valued function. Why? Because z is a complex number that we have, and it can give you a complex valued results. So it's a complex valued function, and it is also single valued. meaning at some particular value of, what does single valued mean? Single valued means that for a given value of z, you only have one value for f of z. You cannot have 2 or 3 kind of values for f of z. So it's a single valued analytic function, and it is analytic inside and on a simple closed curve C, except, so it is analytical everywhere within and on the curve except at singularities. So you have a finite number of singularities. So this finite number of singularities would be the points z equal to a, z equal to b, z equal to c, and so on. And these lie inside the curve C, which have residues given by a minus 1, b minus 1, c minus 1, and so on. So in the formula that I have written, this a minus 1, b minus 1, c minus 1 are basically residues at these singular points z equal to a, z equal to b, z equal to c, and so on. And how do we find out these residues? So we have a formula for finding out the residues. So I'm writing down the formula for finding out the residues. So z equal to a is the singular point. And for this, we have the residue. So for z equal to a being a pole, or a singular point being a pole of order k. So this is the expression. Let me highlight this as well. So these are important formulae. You should remember it. Now let us come back to our example and solve it. So in our example, our f of z is given as e to the power z sine z over z squared. Now, what are the poles over here? Poles would be where the function becomes singular. So that means the denominator goes to 0. So denominator goes to 0 means z square goes to 0. That will give you the poles. Now z squared would go to 0 at z equal to 0. And this is a pole of order 2. Why order 2? Because it is z squared equal to 0. Had it been z equal to 0, that would be order 1 or a simple pole. Had this denominator been z cubed, then we would have a pole of order 3. Had it been z to the power n, that would be pole of order n. So that's how you determine the order of the pole. So it's a pole of order 2. Now let us look at the curve that we are given. The curve is z, simple closed curve is a curve which is a circle given by mod z minus 2 equal to 1. So it's a unit circle centered about z equal to 2. So opening up this modulus would give us the following. And this would be just rearranging the terms like so. So our z is confined between 1 and 3. So now notice that in this interval 0. So this means that is z equal to 0, which is our pole, does not lie within C. Does not lie within C. So therefore our integral will be 2 pi I times 0, that is 0. Why? Because our pole is outside C. So remember that in these in this equation, in this residue theorem, all of these poles are there, and these poles need to be inside the equation, so sorry, inside the curve. So all these singular values are inside the curve C. If the singular values are outside, then they would not contribute anything to the integral. So the contribution to the integral comes only from the singular values or the poles, which are given by the residues. But if these poles lie outside of the curve, then they do not contribute anything. So the correct option, as some people have rightly mentioned in the chat box, is indeed the option D, which is 0. Now, had this pole been inside the curve, let's say had it been z equal to 1.5. So let us say, let me just create a hypothetical situation for you. You can work this out yourself. So had the denominator been z minus 1.5 squared, okay? So what would the pole then be? Pole would be z minus 1.5 squared goes to 0. So that would mean z equal to 1.5 is the pole. And this would again be pole of order 2. And then this point lies within the curve that we have. So z equal to 1.5 lies in this region that we have. It lies within the closed, simple closed curve, that is the unit circle centered about z equal to 2. So in that case, the answer would not be 0 because this pole lies within the curve. So it will have some residue value, and that residue value will essentially contribute to your integral. So you can find out the residue for this. So order 2 means k equal to 2, and then you can find out a minus 1 from this formula right here. That would be the single derivative is involved over here. And then you can, once you find out this a minus 1, you can plug it back into this and you will get the answer as 2 pi I times the residue. So you should be careful to check whether your pole is inside or outside the curve. Sometimes what happens is that people just find out the pole and they find out the residue and then they select the answer and they feel that, well, they have solved the question. So this is not correct. The correct way is to find out the pole and then you need to check whether that pole or that singular point lies within your curve or not. Because if it does not lie within the curve, then your answer is simply 0. You do not need to put in so much effort to try and find out the residue or not. So yeah, this is some basic information about integration with complex value functions. So try to solve this question by yourself, and you can post your answer in the Discord forum or the YouTube channel in the comments. I would like to see people trying to solve this question. So now let us move further. We have another question on eigenvalue problem. So we had seen the eigenvalue problem last time. So for those of you who were not present last time, I have another eigenvalue problem for you. And I would repeat the stuff over here for those of you who were not present last time. So we need to find out the eigenvalues of the matrix. The matrix is given. And it's a 3 cross 3 matrix. So it will have 3 eigenvalues and these are the options we need to select. So what is the eigenvalue equation? The eigenvalue equation is given as follows. Ax equals to lambda x, where A is a square matrix, lambda is an eigenvalue, and x is the corresponding eigenvector. Now, solution to this eigenvalue equation, so solution would be given as follows. So if we just rearrange the left hand side and right hand side, we would get the following: a minus lambda I times x is equal to 0. So as I'm solving the question, people also side by side keep working, and if you come up with the eigenvalues, just let me know what the answer is. So in the meantime, I'm discussing some basic theory about eigenvalue equation. So the solution to this eigenvalue equation would be given by a minus lambda I times x equal to 0. And this would give me a solution only when a minus lambda I, the determinant of a minus lambda I is 0, in order to get a non-zero eigenvector x. Now, how did I come up with this kind of a condition that determinant a minus lambda I should be 0? Well, that is simple. I will just explain it to you. So let us say if determinant a minus lambda I is not equal to 0. So if the determinant is not 0 for a square matrix, then you have the inverse, which is existing for that matrix. So that means, this would mean that a minus lambda I is an invertible matrix. That means the inverse exists. So if a minus lambda I x equals to 0, and if this a minus lambda I is invertible, then what we get? We get x equal to a minus lambda I inverse times the 0 column vector, and this will give me 0. So that means my eigenvector x comes out to be 0. But I do not want a 0 eigenvector. I do not want this trivial solution. I want a non-zero eigenvector. So to get a non-zero eigenvector, the determinant of a minus lambda I needs to be set to 0. Now in our case, what is our A? A is the matrix that we are given over here: 1, square root 8, 0, square root 8, 1, square root 8, 0, square root of 8, and 1. So this is the matrix that we have, and let us now find out a minus lambda I determinant and set it equal to 0. So a minus lambda I determinant would be 1 minus lambda square root 8, 0, square root of 8, 1 minus lambda square root of 8, 0, square root of 8, and 1 minus lambda. And this determinant we need to set to be equal to 0. So let us just simplify and solve. So determinant would be expanding along the first row. So expanding along the first row, we will have 1 minus lambda times 1 minus lambda squared minus 8. Then negative square root of 8 times square root of 8, 1 minus lambda. And let us just simplify it. So taking 1 minus lambda common, we have 1 minus lambda squared minus 8 minus 8. And this is just plain and simple algebra that I'm doing. You can do the algebra on your own. So for the sake of completeness, I'm doing the algebra over here instead of just jumping down to the answer. This is just trying to factorize. And finally, we get the 3 factors. So the solution to this would be that the eigenvalues are lambda equal to 1, negative 3, and 5. So from here, so setting this equal to 0, we get these as the eigenvalues. So coming up to the option C, as some people have rightly answered in the chat box. So option C is the correct answer. And before proceeding, I would like to list some properties of these eigenvalues. So some properties. These properties would help you solve some other questions based on eigenvalues. So the first property is that if you have a diagonal matrix or any form of a triangular matrix. So diagonal is a very special matrix, but even if you have some triangular matrix, either upper triangular or lower triangular, so if you have a triangular matrix, then the eigenvalues are nothing but the diagonal elements. So you do not need to actually work out this problem. You can directly get the eigenvalues for a triangular matrix. So let us say if we have a triangular matrix, let us say upper triangular matrix. So 3 cross 3 upper triangular matrix would look like this. The other lower triangular elements would be 0. So in this case, the eigenvalues are given by these diagonal elements over here. Some other properties are that determinant is the product of eigenvalues and trace is the sum of eigenvalues. And then if you have, let us say, a unitary matrix, for unitary matrix, the modulus of each of the eigenvalues would be 1. And for those of you who are not aware of what a unitary matrix is a matrix which has the following property. That u dagger u is equal to identity, which is equal to u times u dagger. And this dagger operator is basically complex conjugation. Complex conjugation followed by a transpose. So a matrix which satisfies this property of u dagger u being equal to u dagger being equal to the identity matrix, such a matrix is called a unitary matrix. And another property is eigenvalues of a matrix to the power some integer value or something. So a to the power k is given by lambda to the power k, where lambda I is the eigenvalues of a. So if you are supposed to find out the eigenvalues of, let us say, a squared, then what you would do, you would find out the eigenvalues of a, and then you would just square those eigenvalues and they would be the eigenvalues of a squared. You need not multiply a 2 times to find out a squared first and then try to work out the eigenvalues. So square would be easy, but let us say if you are given a question wherein you have to find out eigenvalues of a to the power 5. Now it would be very difficult and very time consuming to multiply a 5 times to get the matrix a to the power 5 and then to find out the eigenvalues. Instead of that, what you can do is find out the eigenvalues of a, and then power 5 of those eigenvalues would be the eigenvalues of a to the power 5. So these are some useful properties. Mostly you would be using the first 2 properties quite frequently in order to solve some of these MCQ type questions that would be there in your exam. So you should remember these properties and they would be very much helpful. Now I have 2 more questions and I seem to be running out of time, but I think I still do have some 5 minutes, or rather 2 minutes. Yeah, so some about 5 minutes. So I think we can do these questions. Pretty much simple questions. So yeah, let us solve these questions instead of postponing it to the next class. So now this question says, if a force vector F is derivable from a potential function V, V as a function of R, where R is the distance from the origin of the coordinate system, it follows that, and we are given a bunch of options for gradient and for curl and for divergence. So this is quite a simple question based on the properties of vectors, vector calculus rather. So let me write down. So if F is derivable from a potential, so you know that force is given as negative of gradient of the potential function. So negative of the potential function, so that's how you would write your force. So what this statement means that F is derivable from potential. This statement basically means that we will write force as a gradient of a potential function, and negative sign just to tell you what sign it follows. And in this, now the gradient, sorry, the curl of the force would be given as curl of this gradient of potential function, and this would be the zero vector. And why? Because we have the property that curl of gradient is 0. And then we have a bunch of other properties in this vector calculus. I will just list out those properties for you. Oh, sorry, I have written down properties in this. Let me just undo. So yeah, I have written down a bunch of properties for you. So I will be sharing these notes with you. Then you will have all these properties written down in one place. So the property that we just used right now is this: curl of gradient is equal to 0. Another similar property that we have is that the divergence of curl is equal to 0. So this is another, these are the two quite popular properties that we have, so to say. You should remember, you should definitely remember these two properties. And there are a whole bunch of other properties. Out of this, I would say this last one is also quite important. It occurs frequently when you are trying to study wave equation, electromagnetic theory. There you would be using this property. And then there are a whole bunch of properties, some of which are very easy. For example, these properties right here, they are pretty much intuitive, easy to remember, not at all complicated. Then some properties are quite a bit complicated, like these two ones over here. They have 4 terms and it's quite difficult to remember these properties. But yeah, so these are the list of properties that are there for vector calculus. Now coming to the last question for today. This is another question based on eigenvalues, and we will use the properties that I just listed out. So it says a 3 cross 3 matrix has elements such that its trace is 11 and its determinant is 36. The eigenvalues of the matrix are all known to be positive integers. The largest eigenvalue, sorry, not eigenvalues, it should be eigenvalue. The largest eigenvalue of the matrix is, and we have 4 options. We need to select one of these 4 options. So if people would like to solve this question before me, I would give you 1 minute to answer this question. It's a simple question. So if people can write in the chat box in 1 minute if someone is able to come up with the answer. Else, of course, I would discuss the answer. So let me discuss the answer. Yeah, some people have written down the answer. Okay, someone is saying 9. Fine. So let me discuss the answer now. So the determinant is what? It is the product of eigenvalues. Okay. And trace is what? Trace is sum of eigenvalues. So let us say it's a 3 cross 3 matrix. So we will have 3 eigenvalues. So trace is 11. So sum of eigenvalues would be 11. And determinant is 36. So product of eigenvalues would be 36. Now, we are given that all the eigenvalues are positive integers. What that means is that if all of these eigenvalues are positive integers, what that means is that 18 and 12, these options A and B, are ruled out. And how am I ruling it out? Well, because 18 plus some positive integer x can never give you 11. So 18, you would have to subtract uh, basically 7 from it. So 18 plus minus 7 would give you 11. Similarly, 12 plus some positive x will not give you 11. You would have to do negative 1 in order to get to 11. So A and B are ruled out. Now someone wrote the option C as 9. So if it is 9, then you would see, let us say, look at the trace. So 9 plus 1 plus 1 is going to give you 11, because we need to add only positive integers. And positive means non-zero. So we can't do 9 plus 2 plus 0. That is not possible. So the only option with 9 would be 9 plus 1 plus 1. But when you do 9 into 1, that would give you 9, which is not equal to 36. This is not equal to 36. So this is not correct. So if you have the option 6, that would be, to get 11, you would do 6 plus 3 plus 2 to get 11. And then 6 into 3 into 2 is going to give you 36. So 6 is the correct option, option D. So that's all for today. We looked at 5 general aptitude questions, 5 mathematical physics questions, and this is how we will proceed further. Like, we will discuss some general aptitude questions in every lecture, and then we will select one topic out of mathematical physics, electromagnetic theory, and quantum mechanics. So that's for today's lecture, and for those of you who joined late, I will share the links that we have for you. So here is the link to the YouTube channel, which you could go and subscribe, and then you can follow. So all of these videos, all of these lectures that we have are being live streamed on YouTube. So you can go back to these lectures anytime you want on YouTube. Then we have this Google Drive link where all the lecture notes would be uploaded. So once this lecture is over, and if you want to have a look at the lecture notes, you can go to the Google Drive link. And then we have the Discord server, which you can join, and you can pose your queries in the Discord server, and we will look at those queries that you have. So that's all for today. Thank you for joining, and we will meet next Saturday.
Recording stopped.